If you were thinking, oh wow, an Iceden DPS build which probably shatters every DPS record on a training dummy, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that build doesn't yet exist. But if you were looking for a fun to play Iceden DPS which performs great when solo or in 4-man dungeons and has very good damage, healing, support for the group, and on top of all that, great sustain and defense, then you are at the right place. Hi everyone, Monk here, and today I bring you my Magden PVE DPS build, which is sorta old but with a new twist, which makes it really fun. But before I start, if you are new to my channel and not yet subscribed, then please hit the subscription button and also the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. And now, let's start with the build. ZOS has made some changes to how the ice staves work and introduced this new debuff, Minor Brittle, which increases the critical damage taken by 10% when enemy is chilled. So the build here is based around this very concept because Magden from his class passives has 200% chance of applying chilled. And don't forget that chilled enemies also get minor maim, which reduces their damage done by 5%. That means Magden is the best class to truly benefit from these debuffs. And to top all that, Magden also has the passive which increases the damage of magic and ice abilities by another 10%. So we are going to combine some of these new changes with some of the already existing setups and have some fun. So as usual, we start with the stats, with the sets coming up next, and then at the end, a quick overview of skills and rotation. For the race, we are a Dunmer. As always, my favorite race for mag builds because of extra stam, fire resistant, and option to switch between mag and stam. However, if you are a Breton or High Elf, the build works just fine. You'll have a little bit of less stam, but it's not a deal breaker. So when self-buffed, we have about 21,000 health and 25,000 Magicka with a very decent 13,000 stamina. Our Magicka recovery is at a very good 1800 plus, which means no whatsoever sustain issues. Our spell damage is at a really decent mark of 3.2k, and with almost 69% crit and the various crit damage modifiers, our parsers can get up to 80% damage just from the crits. Penetration is sitting at almost 4.9k, and with Major Breach we get close to 11,000. It's a little bit shy of 12,000 mark, which I usually go for, but even with the 11,000 the build works really well. For the Munderstone, of course, we are using Shadow. Any build which has over 50% crit chance, Shadow tends to beat out any other Munderstone, and with almost 70% crit chance, Shadow is a winner here by miles. For the matter of being mortal or a vampire, I would recommend stay mortal. Vampire's passives are no longer great anymore for mag builds unless you specifically make a vampire based build. For the food, I'm using Orzoga's Red Frothgar. It gives you a lot of health and mag recovery and is really cheap to make. And the last is the potions. Since we don't have any passive Major Prophecy, so we use the spell crit potions. These will give you not only Major Prophecy but also return mag and health when used. Try to keep them up all the time because you don't want to lose on that juicy 10% crit chance. And now for the gear, we are using some of the existing tested and proven sets. As usual with all the solo builds these days, the Ring of the Pale Order has once again retained its spot in the build. The amount of healing it provides is too much to let go. Of course, when you are not into solo arenas and are in a group with a healer, you drop this ring and use full set of Monster Head and Shoulder, which is Zan. You can also use Ice Heart if you really want to deep dive into ice-themed action RPG, but that would come at a cost of about 1 to 1.5 thousand DPS when compared to Zan. As long as the ring is there, you can use one piece of either set. Next set we are using is 5 piece of False God on body, Minor Slayer with 5% damage increase, 2 crit bonuses, and best of all, 8% cost reduction and mag return on kills makes this set absolute top choice for most of my mag based builds. You can find this set in Sunspire Trial, and for the second 5-piece set we are using Medusa. This set is really great when your builds are based on crit. It has slightly less crit chance than Mother Sorrow, but with inbuilt Minor Force, we get an option to run an additional skill on our bar, and that is what makes Medusa my favorite over Mother Sorrow. However, if you want to use Mother Sorrow, go ahead. Both the sets are so close in performance that it really doesn't make a difference if you use Mother Sorrow instead of Medusa. All you would need to do is swap one skill out and use either channeled acceleration or trap on your bar. For the weapons, we are using 2 ice staves on both bar. Front will be a precise ice staff of Medusa with ice cliff, and on the back bar it will be an infused maelstrom ice staff with the weapon damage cliff. Using 2 ice staves guarantees a very good uptime on minor brittle. I have seen as much as 92% minor brittle on some of my parses. Now this is where the question comes, why use an ice staff when with the same setup a fire staff will outperform it by miles? Well, only ZOS can answer this, because as a player we can only go as far as ZOS allows us. We want to play ice damage builds for years, and yet ZOS doesn't seem to care enough to make ice staff and ice damage competitive against the fire staff and fire damage. Well, to summarize the whole setup, we have one piece of medium divine head of Ice Heart, a heavy divine chest of Medusa, with rest of the body pieces of False God in divine. For the jewelry, we have 2 bloodthirsty ring of Medusa with 1 bloodthirsty pale order ring. And then we have 2 ice staves as already mentioned. When you don't have to use a pale order ring, then switch it with Medusa, and on body use a chest of False God with 1 heavy head and medium shoulder of Zan or Ice Heart. And that should be all about the setup. Now let's have a quick look at the skills and then I'll show you the rotation. On the front bar we start with Bird of Prey as our first skill, gives us minor berserk just for slotting it, as well as major expedition on demand. Next we have his Fetcher Infection, decent dot damage but most importantly minor vulnerability. With Bird of Prey and Fetcher Infection we already have 10% damage increase, which is same as Major Slayer. Next skill is Deep Fissure, our main burst damage skill as well as main source of Major Breach. This skill is amazing when it comes to take care of trash because of AoE Major Breach that we can apply with it. Fourth skill on our bar is Force Pulse, our main spammable. But here you also have an option to slot Elemental Weapon from Sijic skill tree or Cliff Racer from Animal Companions. I prefer Force Pulse because it's great when you know you are going to deal with a lot of adds, because this skill deals up to 11,000 plus damage to the enemies that were affected with any of the status effects such as Chilled, which we have 200% chance of applying. So feel free to use any of these and you will be fine. The last skill on this bar is Blue Betty, gives us major sorcery as well as almost 5,000 Magicka return over 20 seconds. Now this skill also has a couple of secondary effects which are healing us for almost 1200 health every time you use it from Warden passive Bond with Nature, and that triggers another passive called Maturation from Green Balance, which gives us minor toughness, increasing our health by 10%. So as you can see, 4 out of 5 skills on this bar are from Animal Companion tree, not counting the bear as ultimate because that's situational, and I will cover that in a moment. So these skills increase our damage by another 8 to 10% for just having them slotted because of the advanced species passive. And now on the matter of ultimate, I use the bear when I know fight will be more or less single target as well as last more than 15 to 20 seconds. For shorter fights, I use Temporal Guard on the front and replace the bear on the back bar with Destro ulti. You can also use Northern Storm here. Both ultimates are pretty strong and have similar damage output in general. Now on the back bar, first skill I have is Leeching Vines, our second source of healing apart from Pale Order Ring, although I rarely use it, but it does come handy sometimes. Especially in outnumbered scenarios, this skill is really strong. Next is Elemental Drain. This skill is again used only when the fights are longer and we need that minor max steal for our sustain. That also means this is our flex spot. You can also slot Harness Magicka as shield or Ice Fortress to make you even more tankier with major resolve and minor protection. Next we have is Mystic Orb, a great AoE damage skill for trash mobs as well as for single target. The amount of damage per second this skill deals is really great. Fourth skill on this bar is another great AoE and single target dot damage skill, which is Winter's Revenge. Deals tons of damage as well as have a very high chance of applying Chilled. Make sure to keep this up all the time along with our final skill on this bar, which is of course Unstable Wall of Elements. With Maelstrom stuff on, it not only buffs our light attack damage, but you can also abuse it as a spammable when dealing with trash mob. The explosion damage from this skill comes really handy to get rid of trash much faster than using a single target spammable. For the ultimate, as already mentioned, use either the bear or destroy ulti depending on where you are. And CP for this build, I will be posting that in the info section below, so please make sure to check that out. And now with the skills out of the way, let's take a quick look at the rotation. Well, it's a static rotation to make things easier and still be able to pull off good DPS. So we start with buffing ourselves with Blue Betty and Crit Potion. Then the rotation starts with casting Deep Fissure, Bar Swap, Wall of Elements, Winter Revenge, Orbs, and then Bar Swap. Now once back on the main bar, we start again with Deep Fissure and then 2 spammables, and then another Deep Fissure and 2 spammables. Now here, before you swap to the back bar, make sure to do another Deep Fissure, and then we follow the same rotation on back bar as before. The only thing that will change is when on the main bar you have the bear ulti ready, in the first part of rotation you will drop 1 spammable and use bear instead, and in second part when you have to recast the net, then also you drop 1 spammable. Basically this will happen every alternate rotation. It goes without saying that you must use a light attack between every skill and after every bar swap, because light attack makes the biggest chunk of all DPS setups. And this is as simple as it gets. With a decent amount of practice, you can get up to 70,000 DPS with this setup, which in my opinion is really good for almost everywhere in this game. So that was it guys, my Iceden DPS setup, and with this I wish you the very best with your own Iceden. And if you have any ideas that you think might make this build even better, or have any feedback about the video or the build, then feel free to post them below in comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So see you soon in the next video and have a great time.